My name's Lora Avedian and I'm a textile designer and artist. I specialise in embroidery and I'm going to show you how to do your own embroidered motif inspired by Leighton House Museum. So the design of the motif that you're going to be embroidering is inspired by the Leighton House Museum's Arab Hall and the tiles, the really beautiful tiles, Damascus tiles that you get there. And if you've seen it, the colours are really incredible. And this is from the book. So it's this set of tiles that I found really fascinating, and in particular these carnations here that I love. It's the Armenian side of my heritage that I did a lot of work on during my masters, and I found that the carnations and tulips came up a lot in all the textiles that I found that were from that part of the world. I think that's partly from the Silk Road. So you're going to be learning how to make this motif, which is something that I drew from those tiles, and this is the final piece that we're going to be making. The technique that you're going to use is something called couching, which is an embroidery technique I use a lot in my work, and it's essentially pinning down a material, thread or yarn, to the fabric that you're sewing it onto. You'll see in a demonstration that it's quite a simple technique and it's very repetitive, so hopefully you'll enjoy it, and I can't wait to see what you will make. Thank you very much.
Okay, so to get started you need a hoop which you can put your fabric into to make it nice and tight. These are embroidery needles, a pencil, some basic sewing thread, some sharp scissors and some embroidery thread. So we're going to start by putting our fabric onto, I've just got some basic calico. We're putting it onto our pattern. So because I've drawn it in a felt tip pen, you can see it through the fabric. But if you can't see it through your fabric, then you need to put it up against a window or a light box. I'm going to draw over it with my pencil. So once you've done that, you put your hoop, your fabric into your hoop. So you can do it a couple of different ways, but the way I'm going to do it is flipping my material over . You need to get your embroidery needle, whichever one you're comfortable with. Ideally one with a longish eye, so that's the hole at the end of the needle. It needs to be fairly long so that you can fit your embroidery thread through. We're going to start with this darker thread, and it's going to go around the edges of the flower. I'll start by placing the thread on my fabric, the top thread that's going to be pinned down with my regular thread. So I'll cut a length of that cotton thread and put it into my needle, and then tie a knot at the end of it. And this is how I tie my knots. I take the end of the thread and wrap it around my finger, this little X, and then I rub it between my fingers and roll it off the end and pull it back down so that you get a little knot. So that's my little trick, save you fiddling around with things. So to start with, I use my thumb to hold down the main material that's going to be my couched material, and then I come up with my needle from underneath on one side of my drawn line. So I'm trying to do a very small stitch, and it's going directly over my line and over my embroidery thread to hold it all down. So I do that twice on my first embroidery stitch. So yeah, just keep going like that. So that's finished. The flower, that's one part finished. And I'm going to tie a knot at the back to finish that off completely. So when I tie it off at the back, I just go in and catch my last stitch, make a little loop and a knot. So again, you go in, I do that a couple of times, go in, make a little loop and then tie it through again. So you're essentially making a little knot to finish it off at the back. So we're going to use this blue embroidery thread. We're going to use a thin thread to go over the top of it. Now I am going to put my thread on top of my line where I'm going to start. So again, I'm going to go over just a couple of times, and then to start with, and then I'm going to do them about a centimetre away from each other, my stitches. I'm doing the final stitch at the end of my stem, and I just go over it a couple of times to secure it. And then to finish it off, I'll trim that end and make sure all of the threads are nice and even. Okay, so this next section is the bit that we're going to do underneath the flower heads. So you need to hoop your piece back up again and get your blue thread, your embroidery thread, and this time it's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to thread up our embroidery thread, which is the one that's going to go on top. And we're going to hide that thread in the fabric. So I'm putting my embroidery thread into my needle, and then I'm going to start around here and put it in, pull it through so you've got a little bit there, do a little knot to keep it from coming through the fabric, and then pull it so it stays there. So this is where the end of your embroidery thread is going to start. So it's a hidden end. So now we'll take that off our needle and put the burgundy thinner thread that we're going to use to stitch it down back on our needle, and tie the knot at the end, and start about half a centimetre or a few millimetres away from our from where our thread goes, our embroidery thread goes into the fabric. And then we're going to pin that down in the same way we've done all the other ones. And what we're going to do next is add a little bit of thread on the inside of our flower. So we're going to add a little bit of pink to the inside. So I'll cut off a bit of my pearly embroidery thread. And we're going to use a burgundy thread to go over the top. And we're going to start, as we did with all of our other ones, by placing it on top of the fabric and holding it down with our thumb where we want to start. And there you have it. That's your the inside of your flower done. And if you take off your hoop and finish off all your ends at the back, there you go. The next thing to do is to give it a little iron. You always iron your embroidery on the back of it, using a little bit of steam.
Thank you for doing my workshop. I hope you enjoyed that, and I can't wait to see what you've all done. Bye!